Right. The batch manager is an application there really to be able to register information about a batch and to be able to associate samples with that batch. So typically the uses of this, if you're a manufacturing business, it would be to record batch details about production batches of finished product or material batches. And in the commercial contract laboratory environment, this screen can also be used for customer requests to record details of what the client wants you to do and to associate samples back to that customer's request. And those samples could be all different types of materials and different things that you're testing. So if I come in here to go to new record, I can now create a batch within the system, and I have the capability to, if this was relating back to a specific customer or a manufacturing batch, to put a customer batch ID in. Just do anything. I can say what type of batch this is about. I've got clearly set this up as manufacturing, so I can say that this is manufacturing. I can pick the material that this relates to. I'm going to go for alloy. And I could also, I believe I only have one specification attached to this, but if I had multiple specs attached to this alloy, I could pick which ones I want to test against. I can also say who is submitting this particular piece of batch. Valid Jones in the Welsh here. And I can also relate a batch back to a project we may have on running. This one for an experimental alloy, which comes from the project manager. And we have other information up here. We can say when we want this processed by, pick a date, say we'll tip by Friday the 13th. Say adjust the times by just clicking in the fields, and you can just type into these fields 611. And again, for this manufactured batch, in this case, you may want to put an expiry date for that particular batch. Not if you were manufacturing this for a customer, you could pick the customer this relates to, and also who our contact is. So again, this is coming from the customer, company details, and this is coming from the people which are associated with Brains. And then I could even relate this back, especially in the commercial world, contract lab, to maybe a quote that we had raised for a customer for a given request on a manufacturing batch, and even an order number. So in this case, if I went into there, I do have a quotation from Brains. Select that, but I know I don't have it on at this moment in time. So you're entering basic detail about what this batch is about. Do remember that the titles of these fields can all be changed. So where we have commercial contract labs using this functionality, they change these to reflect their own knowledge. So often this would be a request number rather than batch ID. Again, you've got place for remarks. And if I then save those changes, it will save the changes. And we now have a unique batch ID. Again, within Qualoupe, this format of number can be selected by yourselves to be what you like it to be. In this case, I've got the AT to clearly identify as a batch, then the year, and then the sequential number. We can then to this batch, do a number of things. We can add samples to the batch. We can also add documents and also attributes. So if we look at samples, come down to add samples, it will pick the material that I'd selected, but I can change that. I could put not samples of all the same sort, and in the commercial contract, but it could be that the supplier is submitting many different types of samples for you to test on one request number. In here, I use the same item, and if I then click add, I'll add those. If I then save these changes, it will then allocate a unique ID for each sample attached to this batch request number. And in this case, it's using the batch number and then the simple sequential number of sample 1, 2, and 3. And these samples can then be processed in the normal way. We also have the capability within the batch manager to attach files, documents to this. If I do an attach file, I can then browse. Let's go to my documents and find something suitable. I'm sure something about the Angry Trust would be very useful, but I could then put a title, see in there, upload the file, and that file will be added. If I save changes, it's then stored within there. So if we go to, I could then open that file just by clicking on it, and it will pull up a new tab. And in my case, what it would have done is actually, because it was a PDF, it would have just downloaded it into my downloads folder in my documents. My fault, I hadn't checked that. Attributes is a way of adding any other information to a batch that you might. You may have some other information, and basically you create attributes, which gives you the name of what the attribute is and then what the value of that data is about that attribute. So it's not widely used, but it's available to people. And this batch has statuses. Click on there. This one is currently status new to say that it's a brand new batch. Nothing's happened on it as yet. Samples been added to it. But I can change the status based on my access rights, the actual status of that batch at this moment in time. It's suggesting the only thing I can do is to begin processing this. And if I highlight that and save changes, it will carry on. As these samples get processed through the sample results input routines, as they're entered and validated and approved, these batches can change to reflect the workflow logic that a business has. And really, that is the batch manager. There is some additional functionality down here about splitting samples. We're going to do that in the next class, take you through that aspect of the batch program. That's the end of that. Are there any questions?